Hello, I'm Jake Boudrot, Civic Journalist at Tellil Community Television. This week on The Record, a well-known local politician passes away. Richmond Municipal Council held its regular monthly meeting on April 22nd in Arichat. After the meeting, Warden Lois Landry fielded questions from the media. Local municipal projects received provincial funding approval. The RCMP said officers recently stopped dozens of truck drivers in Port Hawkesbury. And the Centre of Rural Aging and Health updates its spring activities and events. But first, the results of the federal election. The Member of Parliament for the new federal riding of Cape Breton-Canso-Antigonish has been elected. According to unofficial results from Elections Canada, with all 245 polls reporting, Liberal candidate Jaime Battiste took the riding with 24,634 votes, good for 51.5% of the vote. In second place was Conservative candidate Alan McMaster, who received 20,714 votes, which turned out to be 43.3% of the ballots cast. The third place candidate was NDP Representative Joanna Clark, with 4% of the vote and 1,914 total votes in the riding. People's Party of Canada candidate Ryan Smythe was in fourth place with 337 votes, to give him a percentage of 0.7%. In fifth place was independent candidate Rebecca Wall, who finished with 228 votes, for 0.5% of the vote share. According to the unofficial results from Elections Canada, voter turnout in the riding was 74.4%, with 47,827 people making their mark in a riding which includes Richmond County, the town of Port Hawkesbury, Inverness, Victoria, and Guysborough counties, as well as Antigonish town and county. On April 23rd, the town of Port Hawkesbury said town council, staff, and residents marked the passing of Billy Joe MacLean. The town said MacLean's success as town councillor, mayor, MLA, provincial cabinet minister, chair, charter board member, and board member of numerous committees highlights his long commitment to public service and extensive political experience. Since MacLean's entrance into political service in 1962 as town councillor and his 8 terms as mayor, he witnessed and influenced many economic and social changes within the town and the surrounding strait area, the town of Port Hawkesbury noted. Throughout these many changes, the town said he remained constant in his commitment to the residents of Port Hawkesbury and surrounding municipalities. MacLean served many years as chair of the Strait Area Mayors and Wardens Committee, which promoted and strengthened the position of the Strait region, both politically and economically, while mobilizing regional leadership for growth, said the town. MacLean took great pride in every role he served politically, and in turn, the town said the support shown by Port Hawkesbury residents over the years demonstrated their pride in his leadership. During times of crisis, the town said MacLean demonstrated his strong, steady, and steadfast leadership. On August 22, 2011, MacLean formed the Municipal Action Committee in response to the New Page paper mill closure, uniting regional leaders to advocate for the local economy. As chair, he highlighted the mill's vital role in the area's economic growth, the town said. Port Hawkesbury Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton said MacLean was a giant among politicians. She said, "Our families grew up together in the same neighborhood, only a few houses apart. So you could say that my introduction to politics was certainly thanks to Billy Joe. I had the privilege to serve as a councillor in 2012 under his leadership during his final term as mayor. I know full well the commitment required to fulfill the role as a public servant. None of that is possible without the support of your family and your community. I'd be remiss if I didn't extend the deepest condolences to Billy Joe's family, who have generously shared this remarkable political champion with their town, with their province, and with the country." The town said MacLean will be remembered for his long-standing commitment to the community, his dedication to improvements of recreational opportunities and recreation facilities in Port Hawkesbury and beyond are among his most notable accomplishments to public service, they noted. The town said MacLean's accomplishments in support of his home community are many, some of which are acknowledged via MacLean's induction into the Port Hawkesbury Sports Wall of Fame in the Port Hawkesbury Civic Centre, a facility built in 2004 under his leadership as mayor and in collaboration with other community leaders. MacLean was also a recipient of the King Charles III Coronation Medal for his decades of public and community service. Richmond Municipal Council is sending a letter of support for those backing solar projects in the municipality to proceed with a public consultation phase. Councillors approved a recommendation from its Committee of the Whole to forward correspondence to Nova Scotia Energy Minister Trevor Boudrot about two proposed Nova Scotia community solar projects, one in Whiteside off Highway 104, the other off Highway 4 near Kempt Road. The companies AI Renewable, Solar Bank, and Trimac Engineering are planning two community solar gardens and want to host two public meetings and make a presentation to Richmond Municipal Council.
The committee discussed the Nova Scotia Community Solar Program. I move that Council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and send a letter of support to the Minister of Energy for the proposed community solar projects in Richmond County.
Seconder, can I have a seconder for that? Sorry, Councillor Mumbercat. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried.
So is there support from council for the solar projects? Is that the sense that you're getting?
Yeah, I think there is certainly support for us to investigate and to allow for the folks looking to potentially build solar farms here to start communicating and engaging with residents. So in order to begin that process, this is what they ask of us, to sort of indicate our support. And you saw tonight that there was unanimous consent for that. Then there is sort of engagement, and there will be some in-person engagement and some online, I believe. So we're eager to see what comes of that and hear reports of that to council later on.
Where's the project based, just out of curiosity?
Between here and the hospital, between exit 46 and the hospital at the Straight Richmond Hospital. So in that general area.
Is where they're cutting out off the side
I think so.
of the highway?
Yeah.
Okay. Council again voiced its opposition to the increase in the non-resident deed transfer tax. Councillors approved a recommendation from its Committee of the Whole to send a letter to Premier Tim Houston to encourage reconsideration of the policy.
The committee discussed the Government of Nova Scotia non-resident deed transfer tax increase. I move that Council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and send a letter to Premier Tim Houston outlining these concerns and to encourage a reconsideration of the policy change and/or to consider at least making the change apply only to properties with existing dwellings, not to land that could be developed into homes, and include out of country rather than out of province, and that family transactions involving land and/or transfers be included in the list of exemptions.
Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Marchand. And just a note that Councillor Mumbercat gave a detailed report around her rationale, and that information is included in this package for folks who want to see a written copy of that. So is there any other discussion on that motion? Go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of points in what Councillor Mumbercat had given. Because resource lands aren't taxed.
Correct.
There's chunks of land that are taxed as well, right?
Resources exempt from, right, yeah.
Okay.
Was that incorrect in my memo, you guys? Did I have it written wrong?
No, it's in the memo.
Okay.
Now. There are a list of exceptions on the website.
Yes.
And it seems land that, like vacant lots that are used for residential development will be taxed, but large lots won't be taxed.
That's how it appears.
Yeah. So.
Sorry. So do you have a question? Or
No, just making a point.
After reaching out to people in the real estate business as well, one of the things I was told, now I don't know, I want to explain this properly, but when somebody subdivides a property at times that may be listed as resource, that listing sometimes stays for a long time after. It doesn't shift automatically to residential. And that could be part of the issue here as well, whereas that wouldn't happen if it's still listed as resource. But if somebody's subdividing it, it probably should be changed almost automatically.
But they could sell it though without the tax.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's a loophole.
That's a loophole, yeah.
Sorry, any other discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. You can record that.
Are you going to note your nay vote in the letter to the minister about the non-resident deed transfer tax increase?
No, once council makes a decision that it is the role of warden and each person on council to say, I had my opportunity to have my say. But the letter comes from council, and we are united in the notion that once a motion passes, it passes from council.
Why did you vote nay in that case?
I voted nay tonight because I had voted nay in the past. I really do have concerns about the challenges that people who live here have in purchasing property as our property values are going up so dramatically. So the point of this legislation, I believe, and we've seen from Minister Lohr in question period, for example, when he asks that, is that it is to give local residents a bit of a leg up, so that by imposing a higher fee on folks from out of the province, and worth noting that it's not just people out of province, but people who do not move here within 6 months. So if you buy a house and you just need a few months to come in here, it doesn't apply to you. And there are a whole host of other exemptions, but those were my reasons for voting against it. But there are legitimate reasons for the concerns that council has, other members of council made. And so by and large, as is the case in a democracy, a vote was held, and that's how we will move forward as a council.
Are you hopeful that the contents of the letter going forward better represent not just what the 4 councillors that voted yay in favor of it feel, but the entire council?
I've written other letters before where other councillors voted against writing that letter. And ultimately, when you make a decision as a council, you live and die by those decisions. So I wasn't particularly, cognizant, or when I was in favor of the letter, I didn't make a great effort to go into great detail about why somebody might not have. So I wouldn't do that in my case. I think it is certainly fair to say in any letter of this nature, we appreciate that government's rationale is ... which are similar to mine. However, this council has decided, and we are one council.
Next, council voted to send a letter to the Straight Richmond Healthcare Foundation supporting the effort to get a CT scanner at the Evanston Hospital.
The committee discussed the request for a letter of support from the Straight Richmond Healthcare Foundation. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and write a letter of support to the Straight Richmond Healthcare Foundation for the purchase of a CT scanner for the Straight Richmond Hospital.
By Councillor Marchand, and just a reminder that this is a letter, although the content might be very similar, it's actually to the Straight Richmond Hospital for them to use over and above what we already sent to the Minister of Health and Wellness. So any other discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Tonight, council approved a letter of support for the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health Committee. That letter going to the Straight Richmond Hospital in terms of getting a new CT scanner there. What can you tell us about why council wanted to get behind this one?
Yeah, that's an easy one for us to support. And a little background is that the timeliness of this is significant. So back in September of 2024, the provincial government announced that there would be additional dialysis chairs coming to the Straight, but those would be built by sort of prefab modular construction and would sort of arrive on site. But it takes the existing chairs that are there, and those will be moved to this new modular site to keep them all in one place. place naturally. That opens up a space within the footprint of the existing building. So whenever you have space in an existing building, you want to sort of get on top of that really quickly. So the foundation has decided that they're prepared to start fundraising and issuing letters of support, calling for letters of support from us to move ahead with that fundraising and to make those requests from the department. So we've already written a letter to the Department of Health. This is a similar letter in content, but it would be written to the Healthcare Foundation so that they can take it to leverage additional dollars, hopefully.
So just for clarification, the dialysis chairs would be moved from the street to the new St. Anne Centre? Is that?
No.
Oh, sorry.
So they would be moved to another location on the site. So there's a modular unit that's coming to add additional chairs. So those chairs would move from inside the building into the new modular unit that's coming with the additional chairs.
The Municipal Bylaw/Policy Committee recommended changes to the policy governing the receipt of donations.
So that takes us to the Bylaw and Policy Committee report. So I will again turn it over to Deputy Warden Sampson for April 2025 report.
Bylaw Policy Committee report, April 2025. The committee met on April 8th, 2025. The committee discussed receipt of donations for policy development. I move that Council accept the recommendation of the Bylaw Policy Committee and refer the policy for donations to staff for a report on the feasibility of moving forward with a draft policy.
So there is a motion on the floor to refer the matter to staff, seconded by Councillor Mumbercat. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
What does the donations policy entail? Are there some changes to the existing policy?
So that one is something that we are exploring because we've heard other counties have some unique policies around being able to issue tax receipts on behalf of groups that are not they themselves able to issue those receipts. So there are very strict rules that the CRA, Canada Revenue folks have that we of course will follow. But where there are opportunities for us to, for example, if a group has got a very specific project and we were partnering with that group, if they weren't able to issue tax receipts for donations, there are some jurisdictions where it looks like they're able to do that on behalf of an organization or because there's a clear documented relationship on that project. So we would like to explore every avenue that gives people who are, generous folks from our community, if there's a way to entice some additional generosity by virtue of a tax receipt, we're looking to explore all of those. Of course, they have to fall within the parameters of the CRA. And we also have to be mindful, we have a small staff, so we need to be careful that we don't, for the sake of a few dollars, tax pardon the pun, but tax are the workload of existing staff who have important work to do day to day. So we've asked that staff take a look at what our options are to potentially develop a policy that might benefit, an organization now and then on a particular project or two.
The Municipal Planning Advisory Committee recommends changes to land use and planning bylaws to accommodate secondary and backyard suites.
Next report, back over to Deputy Warden Sampson, who chairs the Planning and Advisory Committee.
Planning Advisory Heritage Committee report, April 2025. The committee met on April 1st, 2025. The committee discussed the exploration of changes to zoning bylaws that support secondary and backyard suites. I move that Council accept the recommendation of the Planning Advisory Heritage Committee and direct staff to explore what other municipalities have in place for zoning for these units and the advantages and disadvantages to different options.
Right, so we have a motion made by Deputy Warden Sampson, seconded by Councillor Marchand. Any discussion on that matter? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Now, do you think that loosening rules around things like backyard suites can really help with the housing shortage?
Yeah, so there is a new piece of legislation, or I guess a new program that came out 2 years ago, maybe. And it was originally for seniors, and I think low income was included in that. But a little bit after that, they expanded that to include if there was a family member who had a disability, an intellectual disability, for example. And what we know about the human rights remedy, which is court-ordered legislation to take Nova Scotia from being probably one of the worst places to live with an intellectual disability to what I believe will be one of the best places over the course of 5 years. Government is going to have to find ways to, for example, as they close the Breton Ability Centre, as they close any facility that has more than 4 adults in it, has to close, and we have to find a new place for folks to be able to live in their communities of choice. So these backyard suites are really an important way for families and, like mine, who I have an adult child with a disability, and I want to know what all the options are available to us. And I do want to be clear, we currently have zoning and bylaws and rules that allow for backyard suites in Richmond County, and we were the first municipality to have those. So we're really pleased with, we're really proud of what we have done here in Richmond County already. We have a family that is, I believe, one of the first, if not the first, in Cape Breton to make use of that for an adult with a disability in our community. And for folks who are interested, if you want to put a backyard suite, you have to come up with the funding sort of up front, but it's a $40,000 forgivable loan. So if you can show that you've done it and you can do it, you basically get $40,000 of a $100,000 or more project. So we want to make sure that if there are any additional ways that we can support those builds, we absolutely want to get ahead of that.
You get the feeling that there's a growing number of families in Richmond County that do have adults with intellectual disabilities that would want to take advantage of this?
Yeah, I think in the past, what we've seen are people who have said, gosh, fingers crossed for the Hearts, for L'Arche, for the Almaden small options, for Loosedale, and you put your kids' names on those 20 years before you, really expect them to go there, because that's pretty much how long you'd have to wait. So it was, that was the best you could hope for. What I think families are starting to see as they wrap their head around what the human rights remedy is going to mean for families is that the number of dollars that will be available to families and the number of options that the government is this is not a series of this is not a white paper, it's not a series of recommendations. This is court-ordered work that must be done over the course of 5 years. So as families certainly see what options might be available to them, I think you'll see more and more. And certainly as somebody who was principal of the largest high school in the county, I know the names of the kids. I could tell you their names and their addresses and their dates of birth for kids who are at home and happy and healthy, but their families are going to have to make some decisions with them as their parents age. So we want to be ready to support families like that wherever we can.
Council reviewed a letter from an Arichat resident about the preparation for blasting at the construction site of the new long-term care facility in Arichat that will replace the current St. Anne Community and Nursing Care Centre.
The committee discussed a letter from Darren Boudrot regarding the pre-blast inspection of his home for the new long-term health care facility. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Planning Advisory Heritage Committee, direct staff to reach out to the appropriate department to register our concern and to find out if there are either alternative options or a full explanation of the safety measures put in place to protect the municipal water reservoir and local residents.
So we have a motion that has been seconded by Councillor Marquette. Any discussion on that motion, Councillor Marquette?
Thanks, Warden. And I know it's, we all know which long-term healthcare facility it is. It is the St. Anne Centre here in Almaden, but I just wanted to put that context on the record just in case there are folks watching at home thinking, what's happening with Richmond Villa, right? So thank you.
Great, thank you. So the blast did actually take place this week in Arichat. Lots of video of it, and we had some staff on hand to monitor from our perspective as well. Okay, any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried.
I wanted to pick up on the blasting that happened near the new long-term care health facility. And just for clarification, is that the new St. Anne Centre, or am I thinking of something? Okay, it is. Okay. Can you give just a rough idea of where that site is and what exactly happened and what council's role was in terms of the blasting?
Right. So it was an interesting process. So those of us who live on Almadam and drive from Arichat to West Arichat have been sort of following the development of this. So there's a big parcel of land on the south side of the highway between, just before you get to West Arichat and just on the other side of that village line there. And once they started to clear trees, you could see that it was a lot of rolling ground. So we had a resident who reached out to us by letter saying that someone had knocked on his door and said, we're going to be blasting here as they build the new St. Anne's Centre. And we want to put seismographic radar, meters in your house to see whether or not there's any damage, and we can estimate. And then we realized we also have water treatment facilities in that general vicinity. So it was great for us to get that kind of heads up and to work kind of, hand in hand with the resident. It was really for those of us who drive by there, you could see there would have been really probably no way for them to be able to flatten that land without some blast. So earlier this week they had, before Easter, I guess, they had a controlled blast, which, was interesting to watch. Our understanding, certainly from the folks, our staff who were on site, that there was next to no impact felt, but always certainly open to hearing from residents if they had any additional concerns. But it is great to see that project move forward. We just want to, be mindful of all the fallout of some of those parts of moving that forward.
So what specifically is the county's role when a case like that comes up? Essentially, the motion that came forward from Planning Advisory tonight, essentially, what does the municipality have to do?
Well, in fact, nothing, because we have no zoning bylaws or no policies or procedures in place for that kind of thing, whereas other jurisdictions do. Very interesting that one of the community representatives, the citizen reps on our Planning Advisory Heritage Committee, a PAC, had lived in the city where there was quite a lot of new builds going on, and he used to get a lot of that. So it was really great to have that kind of information come forward. So we're looking at the possibility of policy bylaw committee investigating potentially, would it be helpful? We don't blast in Richmond County every day, but it was really, we had a resident who, had some real genuine concerns about the fact that his house was so close to the blast. So, if there's a way that for future development we can get ahead of that, we're happy to investigate.
Now,
Go ahead.
There seem to be some complaints from other people about the lack of planning or maybe preparation. Did you hear of other complaints, and did you get the sense that the preparations before the blast were sufficient?
I didn't hear any other complaints than the one that came before council on that matter. I know that it was frustrating for folks because they had given it time and then they delayed it, and I think they delayed it again, and it kind of it straddled the busing times and when people would pick up their kids from school. So I know there were some complaints on that day about, well, how do we pick up our kids? Well, now I already made arrangements. But aside from that, I hadn't heard any other complaints.
Has the municipality been given an ETA in terms of the completion of the new healthcare facility?
We have not. We know that we're at least 18 months, I think, out. I think those of us who have even done renovations in our houses know that on time and on budget is a bit of a myth. So we're watching each phase kind of roll out. We'll see what the construction season brings, what the weather brings. We know that there are any number of things that can go wrong, can change in terms of supply, in terms of weather events that slow down operations. So, we're really hopeful to see it stay on target, but I believe we're looking at the 1 to 2 year range.
Nova Scotia's Attorney General sent correspondence to the municipality about the additional officer program.
There are 3 letters in your package for information purposes. So one is from on pages 32 and 33, from the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice regarding the adopting of the additional officer program.
Now, the additional officer program, is that something that could be a good fit here in the municipality?
Yeah, we're always interested in getting information from the province around how we can access services and funding from the province, or share that with other folks. So we rely on staff to sort of vet some of those programs, and as we hear more from staff, we'll make more decisions from there.
Council then reviewed a letter from the warden about expansion plans by Brilla Homes, including the development of a new facility and the growth of its workforce.
And a letter from us to Brilla Homes regarding its plans for expansion.
Brella Homes, are you able to provide any more details other than what you had in the letter? What exactly is it that they're doing?
Yeah, so Brilla is a local company that has been, developing homes here, modular homes. And we've actually talked to another developer who's interested in modular. And what we know about modular is that is a really great way to go, because it means your building season extends beyond the traditional warmer weather months. So anytime a company is looking to leverage funds municipally provincially or federally, there is usually a request from those companies, and it can be from, for example, the Straight Richmond Hospital. They're asking for a letter of support. So as any company is looking to expand, or maybe include some more automation or expand in any way, whether it's a building or whatever, not uncommon for us to provide a letter of support. And it was easy to do so with Brilla. We've seen the number of homes that they've built in Port Hawkesbury, for example, behind that dog place. Whether it's student housing or student plus seniors, those houses plus some additional units. So we're really happy to offer that support.
Have they given you any kind of update on how the project is going in Evanston?
No, I did actually receive some questions from Brilla about, do you see the importance of asking for our opinion about the importance of accessibility as a function that they were pursuing with additional dollars. So that, certainly, yeah, that's a great thing to pursue. So no, I don't have much to report on them.
A letter from Municipal Affairs Minister John Lohr to the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities generated discussion from Council about the potential effects on this year's budget process.
John Lohr, Minister of Municipal Affairs, to Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities regarding 12-month notice. Is there any discussion, conversation on any of those not for action, for information purposes only letters?
Someone explain B2.
B2. So can I turn that over to, so it is page 34, 35 of the package.
So it'll be affecting anybody with the provincial police contracts with the RCMP and the costs that are being transferred from them back to us. And this is the 12-month notice from Municipal Affairs to us that those numbers will be changing. I think that's what it was, H division, pretty sure. Yep. So they listed out for us goods, services. No. 1 second here.
So it's for next fiscal?
I believe it is so. Yes, sir. Because they always give us in the spring the numbers that we need for our budget. Yeah. This will be 12-month notice that when we hit this time next year, those numbers are now going to be changing.
Yeah, it says at the end of the first paragraph, the letter is intended to provide notice of such changes for fiscal year 26-27 and beyond.
So when you got the big increase, was it last year or the year before, they did give you notice as well? A year before? That's what I'm wondering with this. Are they changing legislation?
I would have to think they did if we got notice that it was coming. I just can't honestly recall sitting here that we did. They're pretty structured on how they do things, and if the change was coming, I'm sure we received notice in 24 for anything that happened in 25, and in 23 for anything coming in 24. I'm sure we did, but off the cuff, I can't recall that with 100% certainty. But it is very structured how they do things, and they forecast these things a year out. So,
Yeah, I don't know if we knew the specifics ahead. I don't think we did, but we knew well in advance. I know, like, it was brought up that because of the bargaining going on with their union, we knew there would likely be an increase coming, but we didn't have specifics because I think they didn't have them to give us, yeah.
That's correct, Deputy Warden. And as a matter of fact, I believe there's still an open action item in our to-do list from last year, the year before, waiting for those numbers, because we were intending to send a bit of a media release, I think, to our constituents to let them know any potential impacts on the tax rate, but we just don't have that information yet. So stay tuned.
Seems they speak of three different things. Department of Justice, this H division for the RCMP, and biological casework analysis agreement, and then this procurement thresholds. So I kind of get the impression they were changing legislation, because the procurement thresholds, they have numbers there for that.
And those thresholds will apply to our purchasing procurement as well. They're letting us know that those thresholds are now changing. According to the Canadian-European Trade Agreement, CETA, and the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, certain things when we go for procurement, these are thresholds that we need to respect as well. So yeah, there were three lumped in there, but the biological casework goes hand in hand with the RCMP H Division PPA agreement, provincial policing agreement. And then this one, intergovernmental affairs, is just tacked in there as a procurement thing that's changing as well, but they're giving us 12-month notice that these thresholds are changing.
Any other questions on those matters?
And that has been passed on to finance and operations, who do the majority of our procurement.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Do you foresee any delays in getting the budget approved this year, despite what's happened in years past? You figure you guys will be able to avoid that and be able to get it out approved on time?
Oh, yeah, no, we're well, I guess on time. What do you mean by on time, right?
I guess before June or before July 1st.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're 22 days into the fiscal year. But it has been the practice in Richmond County, because to be fair, we are sort of a child of the province, and we rely on the province to give us their numbers so we can accurately kind of detail that. But I think the CAO has said, look, we'd really like to get this year in the books. And we've already started to talk about, we see some other municipalities that are moving that forward a little more quickly. And so is there a way to do that? It is always the question of too early means sometimes you have to do the same thing twice, because you got more different numbers. So we really can't, we're not a big enough municipality to have staff to ask them to do the same thing twice. But yeah, we're quite confident that we will pass the operational part of the budget before the end of June, but then even earlier than that, the capital parts and grants.
Finally, Council voted to send a letter taking issue with Invest Nova Scotia's decision to exclude Point Tupper properties from an upcoming study.
Now in your package from pages 37 to 43, there is a review of our action items that are complete, in progress, or pending. Any discussion from that? Councillor Membercat?
Thank you, Warden. I did have a question, or I guess an update, on item number 453, which we passed in December to authorize staff and council team to work with the province and Invest Nova Scotia on a joint management and planning committee for the Point Tupper Heavy Industrial Park. I do know that there is currently an Atlantic Canadian-wide port assessment being conducted by Net Zero Atlantic as part of, our efforts to prepare for a renewable energy future in the region. And my understanding is that Invest Nova Scotia lands in the Point Tupper Heavy Industrial Park, specifically Cass Cove, and I think that section between Everwind and Bearhead, have Invest Nova Scotia has declined to include them in the assessment. And I've spoken to a number of people in the park, our industrial neighbors there, including Everwind, about this, and we're all left scratching our heads as to why that's happening. So I had a quick conversation with some officials from the Department of Energy last week at the Smart Energy Conference. And I let them know that I would be asking council to consider maybe making a more public stance on this. It's been discussed in our public meetings, but perhaps an additional letter. I did follow up with an email to them today about it as well, and copied in our Energy Transition Manager, Martin Thompson. So, Warden, I guess from my perspective, the fact that not only are we at a bit of a standstill regarding joint management and taking some control over our tax base and our destiny here as a county, we also are being denied the opportunity to participate in Atlantic-wide assessments. So I guess I just wanted to provide that as an update and ask if council would have any appetite to, to step up our efforts here and to more aggressively respectfully and aggressively request that Invest Nova Scotia have those lands included in that port assessment as soon as possible, because soon it will be too late.
Yeah, I certainly am, frankly, find an unwillingness to even have those pieces of property assessed through net zero. I find that staggering in its scope. These are lands that are in Richmond County, owned by Invest Nova Scotia, but they are an agent of the provincial government. If they have a specific purpose for those, it would be, I think, reasonable for the county to have some idea about what those are and why they would decline even participating in an assessment of what options might be ahead of us. So it seems short-sighted at best, and I certainly would entertain a motion to pursue that through letter or other means that council deems appropriate.
Sorry, thank you, Warden. The motion was actually to send the letter regarding joint management, but I do believe I would like to make a motion that we send a follow-up letter insisting on the inclusion of Point Tupper Heavy Industrial Park lands in an Atlantic Canadian port assessment that are owned by essentially the province of Nova Scotia and Invest Nova Scotia.
I'll second.
So we have a motion on the floor, and we have a seconder in Deputy Warden Sampson. Do we have any other discussion on that motion? I certainly concur that time is of the essence, and there is a study looking at the readiness of all ports, essentially in Atlantic Canada, as we prepare for the potential for offshore wind and other green or onshore, onshore as well. So all the green alternatives, and to decline to participate in that study certainly I think needs some explanation, and really the quick answer here is they should just participate in the study or tell us why not.
Who's actually not wanting to participate? Invest Nova Scotia or the committee doing the study?
Yeah, no, Councillor Marchand, it's a great question. My understanding, third hand, is that it was a decision by Invest Nova Scotia to have those lands not participate because they do have the ultimate control over them. And
so since Invest Nova Scotia is a body that is an agent of the government under and I think the name of the legislation is Invest Nova Scotia. There is a piece of legislation but the entity itself falls under the jurisdiction of what had been the Minister of Susan Corkum Greek was the Minister of Right, but that has changed to Growth and Opportunities, I believe. So I believe the letter would belong with the Minister of Growth and Opportunities, since that is where the Invest Nova Scotia lies. Its authority lies in that legislation. And copy, obviously, our Minister, who is, our MLA, who is also the Minister of Energy.
And perhaps a copy to and I'm sorry, I don't know who the CEO is right now of Invest Nova Scotia. I understand they're hiring.
Right.
So
leadership at Invest Nova Scotia. Yep.
You heard it third hand. Is there any reason why they've decided not to include these properties in that study?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, and I think it's the question to which we do not have an answer. I believe Martin was speaking directly with, so our Energy Transition Manager was speaking directly with Net Zero Atlantic folks who indicated that these lands would not be included due to a decision made by Invest Nova Scotia. The problem, you're hitting the nail on the head, Councillor. The problem is we are not being informed when these decisions are being made about our future participation in not just the energy sector, but in any sector that may want to look at developments in that park, and it's unacceptable.
And although there is a certain amount of disbelief on my part that there wouldn't even participate in the study, I would suggest that maybe we shouldn't be as taken aback by that because these pieces of property were not included in the WESI study. And they originally had been. And that information was removed from or no longer considered as part of that. So, which really makes no sense to me. Like, so when you looked at the table that included all of the,
It was very downplayed.
Yeah.
The original draft
Yeah.
was much more robust. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
The original draft in the WESI report was much more robust and contained a lot more information about the potential and the status of it. It was very much, I guess I would say, downplayed in the study. And now, the second blow here is that we're being, denied entry into the Atlantic region. That was a study that we were doing here for ourselves. So, it was not right that it wasn't fully articulated in our own study. But at the end of the day, we know it's there. The problem with an Atlantic Canadian assessment is that, we're being denied the opportunity to participate in what could potentially be a regional play here.
Other comments, concerns, debate? Hearing none, all favor of those, all in favor of the motion, which involves writing a letter around this topic, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries.
Councillor Mumbercat bringing up the Atlantic Canadian Ports Assessment Study and the omission, by the sounds of things, of the Point Tupper Joint Industrial Park from that study. Your thoughts and your concerns about that happening and trying to get it back in?
Yeah, so unless you're living under a rock, we know that there is quite an appetite to evaluate and to take a look at the opportunities ahead of us in offshore wind, in onshore wind, and other green energy projects like hydrogen. And so shipping is a big part of how those things are going to come to fruition. So what we know is that because these are all new industries, of course, there is no one place that's 100% ready to go today. Different ports are at different levels of readiness. And so Net Zero is an organization that is saying, look, in Atlantic Canada, we want to offer you the opportunity to participate in a study that would allow us to help you get an understanding of where your strengths, where your shortcomings are, and what it would take for you to get from here to ready. So we see all kinds of ports that, of course, are saying, sure, take a look at us. So you've got some real powerhouses in consultancy work around this kind of thing, engaging with ports to see what kind of readiness. And to be clear, no one port has to be good at everything. This can be about, look, this is your strength, this is your water depth, this is your air draft, this is your, your wharf capacity. Those kinds of things are really important because there will be a plethora of different things that go into bringing all of this to fruition. So we have Invest Nova Scotia, an agent of the provincial government that owns land. And they have just decided that they're not going to participate in this study, which to my mind, and I think we heard it tonight in the unanimous decision to sort of, just put down on paper what we believe is egregious in their decision to not even participate in that study. These are lands in Richmond County. They are sizable pieces of land. And if they have a particular purpose for those pieces of land that do not involve any part of being involved in green energy, we'd love to hear about that. This is an opportunity for the province and the municipality to work together, and we cannot get any movement on discussions which is bad enough. But to not even participate in a study to see what you have going for you, moving forward, an industry that is, we're looking at 20 years out, and they won't even participate in that study is just outrageous. So if there's a reason why, we would really like to be a part of those conversations, but it makes absolutely no sense to us.
Have they indicated a willingness to at least revisit their decision?
So we really find it difficult to engage in conversations. So we have sent emails saying, look, we'd like to start up some kind of joint management. We'd like to have some conversations. And we really feel like we've been dismissed by Invest Nova Scotia. And we believe that it is time for us to start putting those, our concerns in writing and to start being more aggressive in our conversations and our approach with Invest Nova Scotia.
So it's Net Zero Atlantic that's carrying out the study?
Correct.
Okay. Now, quick question, and Councillor Mumbercat brought this up too. Does the Invest Nova Scotia land in Point Tupper border on the lands owned by Bearhead Energy or Everwind, to your knowledge? Okay.
Yeah, so we sometimes talk about the land between Everwind and Bearhead, but it's actually a huge part of the peninsula that would be the far east part of the park, almost and there's a number of PIDs in there that make up one large piece, with essentially Bearhead being kind of pulled out of that as its piece. So there's the piece between Everwind and Bearhead, but it wraps around Bearhead. So it is a sizable piece, plus over in Cass Cove.
Provincial funding has been approved for 35 municipal infrastructure projects in Nova Scotia. The Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing said the projects will receive nearly $26.8 million in total, covering up to 50% of eligible project costs through the Growth and Renewal for Infrastructure Development program. Among the projects receiving funding is the Village of St. Peters, which was approved for $12,500 for a sidewalk study. To conduct Phase 1 of an extension of municipal services on Artie Reynolds Road, the town of Port Hawkesbury was approved for $309,651. The province said this annual program is a commitment in the Service Exchange Agreement to help municipalities support provincial priorities. They said municipalities can have one active project at a time, and preference will be given to ready-to-implement projects. John Lohr, Minister of Municipal Affairs, said his government is investing in municipalities so they can build more homes and create more resilient communities. He added that the Growth and Renewal for Infrastructure Development program will help build stronger municipalities that have water, sewer, and stormwater services they need. In response to public complaints, Inverness County District RCMP said they stopped approximately 75 tractor-trailer operators and provided them with information on the laws dealing with the use of engine brakes within town limits. The RCMP noted that Section 181A of the Nova Scotia Motor Vehicle Act prohibits their use in areas where the speed limit is 50 kilometers an hour or less. Last winter, Port Hawkesbury Town Council said it will continue addressing complaints from residents about the noise from passing trucks. During a combined Committee of the Whole and public meeting in February, Port Hawkesbury Town Councillor Paula Hart said she was contacted by town residents about large trucks deploying their Jake brakes late at night. Port Hawkesbury Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton responded that the problem centers around noise coming from traffic on Reeve Street and Trunk 4. The mayor said it is illegal for trucks to engage their brakes within town limits, but the problem persists despite many complaints over the years. The mayor said the town has been working with the Port Hawkesbury RCMP detachment and Nova Scotia Public Works to stem the noise problems. She said the RCMP has prioritized this and will continue warning and fining drivers who violate the law. She said the province's traffic enforcement unit can also be used to stem this problem. Chisholm-Beaton said the town will also continue to work with local industry and truckers associations about this ongoing issue to relay their concerns. The mayor added that the town will also speak with Nova Scotia Public Works about erecting signs to remind truck drivers. Joining me today is the Administration and Project Coordinator for the Center of Rural Aging and Health, or CORA. Welcome back, Michelle McPhee.
Thanks so much, Jake. Great to be here.
So CORA is hosting a lot of social activities like the CORA Afternoon Puzzle Club, CORA Cafe every Wednesday and Friday. I think it's called the CORA Crafternoon, if I'm not mistaken. How important is the social aspect for local seniors, these social events?
So yeah, great question, Jake. I think the social connection piece is huge. And we've heard that time and time again from the people that are coming through the door. They're really enjoying the offerings coming out of CORA, but also the people that are coming and the opportunity to meet new people, connect, learn with one another, and even participate in intergenerational programming with our students as well. So I describe CORA as that upstream health intervention that's helping to alleviate social isolation and all the good things.
Now, I noticed the puzzle games, and I assume that's a great way for seniors to stay active mentally.
Yes, I always admire the people that have a brain for puzzles. I don't participate, but I help sort their colors. But some people come in and you can see their brains are sharp and they're putting it together sometimes by the end of the 1 hour. I'm so impressed. But we also combine crafts with the puzzle club. So some people are bringing in their crafting projects, learning from one another, sharing different creative ideas, and puzzling is also incorporated into that.
Now, there was a spring into foraging workshop that CORA hosted with the Straight Richmond Community Health Board. The Straight Richmond Community Health Board was recently in our studio for an interview talking about the group. So I was wondering, what was their involvement in this spring into foraging event, and how much does CORA work with the Straight Richmond Community Health Board?
So they are a tremendous organization, and they have reached out to CORA for partnering for the spring foraging event. So it was really their brainchild, and they sponsored the event as well. So we're really grateful to them. And we worked as a planning group to find some speakers that would be best suited for the day. And we had tremendous uptake, actually. We were fully registered. Over 50 participants came to learn more about what we can do to find edible foods in our own backyard, connecting with similar like-minded folks that are doing that kind of work already.
So the spring into foraging workshop, what did this event entail?
So we ended up having 3 speakers. One woman, Caroline Cameron, she was the keynote of the day. She spent her entire life learning from her parents, who were avid foragers and people who were really resourceful, lived very much off the land. And she spoke about how foraging is really, it's our evolutionary right to be able to do that, and that we all did that at one point, and that we've all got the aptitude, if you will, to continue learning about wild edibles in our own backyard and why it's beneficial both for our mental and physical health. And then we had Stephanie Beaton, who is a physiotherapist, and she shared some really great ideas for when we go out in the forest, how can we move safely and how can we ensure that we're not injuring ourselves and we're taking caution where we need to, some warm-ups, etc. And then finally, Louise again, she's a social worker. She talked about the mental health benefits of foraging, why it's so beneficial for all of us.
Now, I see you're still offering Tai Chi clinics, the foot care clinic, the CORA kitchen, the CORA corral / choir.
Yes.
So there seems to be continued interest in those activities at CORA.
Yeah, there really are. It's great to see. Cooking is probably one of our most popular offerings. We continue to have about 2 classes a month. They're generally always fully registered. It's such a great atmosphere. Our chef, Sherry McCackran, makes cooking fun and easy for everybody. So people come in, sometimes they're completely new to cooking, and some people are really well-versed, but they all work together, learning new recipes, just having a good time. There's always lots of laughter. And we share a meal together at the end and ensure that there's enough food for people to take home with them, which is lovely.
Now, I noticed you also had a Meet the Author event with Frank McDonald. How did that go? And what is the purpose of activities like that?
I think it's so wonderful. We have so many talented people in our backyards, and a lot of them are older adults. Frank McDonald is a fabulous storyteller and author. He's been writing for the local newspaper, The Orient, in Inverness County for decades. And he came in and shared some of his beautiful novels. He read from Forest for Callum and Smelt Dogs. I think it was Smelt Dog Millionaire. And honestly, Jake, I wish I had recorded the laughter for the second the second reading. He had the audience in stitches. There were people absolutely crying from laughter. It was just so fabulous. He does a great job of connecting us to our natural heritage, understanding some of the intricacies of Scottish culture and where we came from, where some of us came from. And I think it's just so valuable to highlight and showcase the talents that we have all around us and storytelling.
I see Cora is offering a Day at Sea event with Captain Steve Baxter in the NSCC Strait Area Campus Marine Simulator.
Right.
That sounds like something a little different from what your regular activities and events are. And it's also, you guys are also getting to kind of be involved with the school too. So I guess that has kind of a dual purpose.
Yes, absolutely. So we had Captain Steve Baxter had reached out to us. He was willing to offer a marine simulation experience with their navigators, which is what the marine students use as part of their professional training. And we filled up almost instantly. And so he had offered to do a back-to-back presentation for us to incorporate the wait list from that. But yeah, it gives people an opportunity to a day at sea, I guess, get a sense of what it's like for folks that are out on the ocean for long periods of time. You can simulate wave action, marine activity, different ports from around the world. So it will be interesting to see where they go and what experience they're simulating.
So, looking at May and June, you have some educational activities such as a presentation on the Halifax explosion, travel talk, art and gardening workshops, the Death Cafe, which you guys have been posting regularly, and a
Yep.
basic income learning event. How important are these educational pieces in your overall programming?
I think they're really important. It provides opportunities for people not only to be heard and showcase their work, their research, their talents, but also sharing opportunities for folks to get to learn about this in their own backyard. So I know you mentioned quite a few different things there, but I will maybe just highlight the basic income event that we do have coming up in May. Again, this was another brilliant partnership with the Strait Richmond Community Health Board. Again, they've offered to sponsor the event for the day. And we'll be hosting an opportunity to learn more about what is a basic income, why is it important, how does poverty impact the lives of individuals, why does Nova Scotia and Cape Breton have such high levels of poverty. We're going to be showcasing an Ontario filmmaker who's actually going to be coming down. Serendipitously, he was there for a Cape Breton vacation and it lined up, so he'll be screening his film. It's called A Human Picture, and they did a basic income pilot in Ontario, and they talk about what happened there. And we'll also be hosting a facilitated discussion and panel with service providers and folks who are experiencing poverty so that they can speak to the experience and help us connect the dots and better understand why a basic income is so important.
Now, the Halifax explosion workshop or session, it seems to be more of like a personal recounting of how it impacted the author's family. Why do you think that was important to offer?
Well, I mean, given that we're a nautical institute, and this is probably one of the most significant marine experiences almost in the world, and to have this first person account really is so incredibly beneficial. So this man, his name is Vincent Pellerine, and his grandmother, she survived the Halifax explosion. So he tells the story from the eyes of her as a 5-year-old and the tremendous impact that that had on her life subsequently and the family itself. He does a great job of creating, unpacking the historical impact of that event and the personal side of it as well. So we're so excited to be hosting him.
Now, one of the other sessions I just mentioned was about travel talk. And I guess is that something you see as significant to offer?
So we do have a lot of older adults that, they're retired and this is the time of life that they get to, do the things that they want to do. And some of it includes traveling. So this travel talk is going to be a host of travel agents coming in, talking about why it might be more beneficial in some instances to book through a travel agent. What are some of the things that you might want to consider as an older adult traveling? Bring your questions and have them answered by these travel professionals. And again, just opening up access to information is always valuable.
Now, in the gardening workshops you're offering too, I suppose that is a dual purpose too, addressing food insecurity, and also it's an activity and a physical activity for seniors. That's something that a lot of people like to partake in.
Yeah, agreed, Jake. I think the timing is right. Everyone's so excited. The weather is finally changing. The sun is out and people are ready to get back in their gardens. Elizabeth Beaton will be hosting this workshop for us. She's a retired professor and gardener, and she's going to talk about small plot gardening specifically. So maybe you don't have an entire backyard to turn over. Let's look at small plot gardening and how we can make a manageable sized plot in our own backyard. And she's going to, I think she has some expertise talking about soils, diseases, and maybe particular pests that you might encounter in your garden. But she's highly encouraging everybody to bring their own gardening knowledge as well, and we can learn from one another.
So as it stands now, we were just discussing this for the interview, just about Cora itself. Do you foresee that the role of Cora is going to change, or do you foresee that you guys are going to continue in the same capacity you are and offering the same types of programs as you have been?
Yeah, so I think there's some programs that you mentioned at the beginning. They're kind of our keystone programs. They've done really well. They're really successful, so we'll continue with those. Provincially, we're funded provincially through the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care, and they've created a mandate for us, and it's specific to older adults, 55 and above. And again, we see this as this is an upstream health intervention. So it makes sense for the province to be investing in this type of health intervention. And I think as we continue to learn and grow, we've got a tremendous year, lots of growth, new people, new ideas, new facilitators coming forward. So we're always open to trying new things, hosting new programs that might be of benefit to folks. And then in terms of our structure, when the province rolled out, we have 4 foundational pillars that we design all of our programs around. So healthy relationships, healthy eating, healthy practices, and physical activity. So those are really the keystone pillars with which we organize all of our programs. And that's how we decide what to do.
So beyond May and June, what do you foresee happening? Do you guys tend to ramp down in the summer for obvious reasons with vacations and people traveling and things like that?
September to June, we offer programs September until June. We pause for summer. That's the time when we do our surveys. We have to do our final reporting, plan for our fall calendar, and then we resume programs in September. But we offer programs Tuesday to Friday, September until June.
Now, the surveys you just mentioned, what does that entail?
So again, we're pretty new, right? So we're trying to figure out, what do people want to see in future? How are we doing? Are there ways that we can improve? What are some of the barriers you might be experiencing? What are you liking about Cora? And just, to get a temperature, it's important to ensure that you're moving forward. And this is participant driven, right? Cora is very grassroots. We're designing the programs around the interests of the folks coming to the program and the skill sets that they have. So we want to ensure that that's being heard. And there's, we can always, it's important to incorporate the suggestions from participants to ensure that you're on the right track. I will say, though, if I could, that we were really excited since we chatted last. One of the things that we'd heard continually from people was around transportation being a barrier. And so we've been able to allocate some of our budget moving forward. We're currently piloting a free transportation to Cora via straight area transit, the SAT bus. And this is for Inverness and Richmond County participants to start. And we're going to see what the uptake is like over the next few months and see if we might be able to offer it broadly to our quad counties. But for now, if you're interested in attending Cora and transportation is an issue, you're welcome to call the Straight Area Transit to see if they can arrange transportation.
Now, you mentioned reporting. I assume that's not the same kind of reporting that I do, but it might be similar in some ways. I guess some kind of documentation of the activities and the interests, I guess. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, so the province requires a final report, all of our statistics, all of the testimonials that we've received over the year, where people are coming from, some of the qualitative and quantitative data, what's worked well. And I think, again, as we talk about this being that upstream health intervention, we want to know, what is it preventing? How are people benefiting mentally, physically, et cetera, from this program? So we incorporate all of that. But, you know, to your point, actually, one of the things we're talking about is maybe making it a bit more multimedia. So we have this report, but wouldn't it be beneficial maybe to have a more interactive component, hearing directly from participants about what the program means to them and why they continue to come back. So we're exploring that if we can potentially connect with a student or someone in our IT department to see if we can offer maybe some testimonials via video as part of the final report as well.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate you making time out of your busy schedule to speak with me, answer my questions, and talk to our viewers. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate you doing this. Thanks so much, Jake.
Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.